So there you go. There's some of the highlights of us being out and about over the around the county over the course of the year. You forget about some of those things.
You really do.
We're now delighted to be joined here by the magic of Zoom. Andy Begley, Chief Executive of Shropshire Council. Great to see you, sir. What does Christmas mean to you? Have you got a busy Christmas planned this year?
Good to see you both as well. Yeah, it's always a busy time of year for us, particularly in terms of just finishing off the calendar year and the financial year. So in terms of the council, we're trying to make sure that we come in on budget for this year, and then of course we've got to start to set the budget again for next year when that formally or gets formally agreed by full council February and March. But of course we've got to go out to consultation, and you'll have probably heard a lot about that in recent days. So I guess that's occupying a lot of our time at the moment.
And of course, we've got 2024 is going to be a year of a general election as well, which brings its own uncertainties from a planning point of view, doesn't it?
I think that's right. I think there's risk and opportunity, I think would be the best way of describing that. But again, it just adds another layer of uncertainty to what is already quite a volatile environment for us all to operate in, really.
And I mean, it's been an eventful year for all local authorities around the country, hasn't it? I mean, I guess if we're looking at highlights from Shropshire's point of view, the collaboration with other local authorities in the Marches region is a major thing, isn't it? I mean, what's that going to mean to the average person in the county? What will they see, do you think?
Well, I think that's a fantastic achievement, really, because it was something that we've worked really hard on. Colleagues have worked really hard putting that together over a number of months and liaising with other authorities. And it's the first time this has happened. So we've actually got 2 English authorities and 2 Welsh authorities working together, calling themselves the Marches Forward Partnership, which is fantastic. And what it is, the easiest way of describing it is a really kind of flexible vehicle that we could use for all sorts of purposes. So it's based on that, dare I say it, that common sense approach where we've got activities that happen across borders, and of course people don't necessarily recognise those immediate borders between ourselves and Wales or between one authority's areas of responsibility and the next. And so there's a certain that common sense element is where are those overlaps? Where could we help each other deliver services? Where could we help each other deliver major projects, particular capital projects? And then how can working together, how can we start to really pique the interest of government and beyond in terms of those perhaps investment opportunities, those growth opportunities, looking at economic development and growth as well. So a mixture of kind of bricks and mortar, the building work, those capital projects, some of the infrastructure work, some of the service area work, and bringing all that together. And it's a really flexible arrangement in that it's not contractually binding in that sense. It works when it works and when it should work, and doesn't need to otherwise. So it's a real positive, and it's engaged people in a fascinating way, to be honest with you, and attracted a lot of positive attention. So we'll see the formal launch of that. I think we've got a date penciled for the end of February, although we had a kind of signing event in November at Hay Castle there, but we've got an event at the Theatre 7, which we're hoping will really kind of set the stall out for what that partnership might achieve.
So this is good news, really, isn't it, for residents of all the council areas that are involved?
Absolutely, because again, I think it's going to help individual councils working together. The idea is it will cost less, and hopefully you'll get much better service and much better kind of response from your individual council by working collaboratively where it makes sense.
Does the cross England-Wales border issue cause any dilemmas? Because you've got different devolved powers, haven't you, on one side to the other in some areas?
Yeah, and I guess the simple answer would be to say yes, it does. So let's not bother. But I think the point about this is you've got like-minded authorities who are saying yes, there are differences, but how can we work with those differences in order to make a difference, if you excuse the phrase? But I think what it's done, it's galvanised people into seeing those opportunities. And again, I keep going back to the common sense bit, because just because somebody lives on one side of the street and the other shouldn't make a difference. And so working together should develop those opportunities. And the other thing that's really important that I guess I didn't realise from a personal note was just how engaged and interested both governments would be in this development. and that's been a fantastic spin-off, and really, again, hopefully a very positive one. And going back to your earlier question, I think no matter who comes into political power in the future, this is always going to be an issue, and that border issue. Don't forget, Shropshire's got the largest single border with Wales. So again, it wouldn't be smart of us not to recognise that and not to understand how we can make that work better.
We've been out and about around the county with SBLTV this year to some industrial areas like Tern Valley Business Park, down to Bishop's Castle, lots in Shrewsbury. Even though we're seeing surveys suggesting that businesses are cautious over the what's planned for the current year, there's lots of investment still going on in Shropshire, isn't there?
There's a fantastic amount of investment and innovation, Carl. And I think you were both there at the business breakfast, and that, if you ever wanted to see that in action, it's there. And I'm always astounded by the kind of conversations that develop from those meetings, and astounding to see that just the spread of enterprise, ingenuity, innovation across Shropshire. And you're right, 1,200 square miles, it's a big area to cover. And whether you've got Bishop's Castle, whether you've got Oswestry, they're very different places. And it's for us, I think the council's role in this is evolving all the time. It's a lot more subtle than it's ever been. And I think it's about how do we enable, how do we kind of gently steward, how do we facilitate and support those enterprises? How do we support that economic development, recognizing that Shropshire's quite different from other areas? Sure, we have some big, fantastically successful operations based here, but likewise, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of much smaller organisations, normally sort of 5 people or less, that really drive our local economy. And again, we are just littered with success stories up and down the county, many of them you've covered in your programme and magazine.
Talking of success stories, and I know modesty will forbid, we've got to say congratulations to you for your shortlisting for the Leadership Award. When do you find? Is it early New Year? You find out about whether you've hit the jackpot with that one?
Yeah, I think so. I think the next time we're here is at the awards themselves. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It was it was a team that managed to do that under the radar. So I was equally surprised as anybody else to receive the news of that one.
That must be quite nice, though, that for the team to feel like they want to do that for you, though.
Yeah, very complimented by that. Yeah.
What does the new year hold then, Andy, from your point of view? Is Christmas a time where you reflect on the year that's gone, or are you too busy looking forward to what's happening? Do you get a chance to regroup, to switch off, to?
Yeah, I think it's important. I do try and encourage the organisation just to slow down a little bit. I think there's many parts of the council that still work over the Christmas period, because clearly we've got some 24-hour, 7-day-a-week services, and that's important to recognise. From a personal perspective, try and take a little bit of a break. And yeah, it is important. We've been kind of running hot. We've been really trying to get everything organised and set. And that's a constant cycle for us in the public sector, in a slightly different way than it is for the private sector. It's just the way we're wired. So this time of year is particularly frenzied in terms of that activity. So to have a few days just to calm down and think about it. But that reflection very much gets focused, and I'm already doing that, on the following 2 or 3 years. And in terms of an organisation, what do we need to concentrate on next? Where do we need to go next? Where do we need to influence, to change? What do we need to be as an organisation to make sure that we're flourishing, so that we can again support the people of Shropshire in the correct way? So lots to think about, but yeah, I'm hoping to have a couple of days with perhaps a beer and a turkey sandwich might help.
If you'd written a letter to Santa, what would you have been asking him for this year? I guess maybe a decent settlement that the government has sort of given this week. Were you pleased with that news?
I'd like to say that I'd be pleased with that news. If I'm being perfectly honest, no, I'm not, because it's a drop in the ocean. When you actually net it out, in terms of you remove kind of what our council tax already is, then actually that uplift is fairly minimal, just a matter of 1% actually, I think, is what that looks like at the moment. And being frank, it's just simply not enough. So I know we shouldn't be too serious about things at this time of year, but that is a very serious subject, that this underfunding really causes us such difficulties that we've got to continue to deliver our essential services, predominantly around children and adults social care, and then we've got to make ends meet with the rest, which is such a huge challenge. So yeah, I think if I could ask Santa, I'd say, can you have another think about that one, please?
Is that one of the things that you think greater bargaining power will help with in terms of the collaboration of multiple local authorities, in terms of having a stronger voice to lobby about these kind of things?
I honestly think we've got to think about the problem in a different way, and this is just one of a different way of approaching a solution. And I think as a sector, we've got to think much more innovatively, much more expansively. How do we generate different conversations? How do we, from a personal perspective, I'm really interested on talking with one voice from Shropshire as an economy to government. And again, having a different conversation there about what we can offer to the agenda of the day, and therefore how can we attract investment, whether it's from government or whether it's from the private sector. And again, thinking about things in that broader sense. Conversations I've been having with chief execs and business leaders up and down the county, and they seem really interested in this agenda. So hopefully for the new year, we'll be starting some of those conversations in earnest, and perhaps developing that really positive narrative that builds on all the assets that we've got in Shropshire and all the stuff we can trade on and the world really needs to know about.
Absolutely, yeah, we do need to shout about Shropshire, don't we, and get people investing in the county.
That's it, and I think that, again, there are so many opportunities for that. If we just think a little bit more laterally about that, how do we package this up and approach a global market, really selling Shropshire in that way? I think there's the obvious stuff, the bricks and mortar stuff, but how we trade on our natural assets. Tourism is an obvious one there, whether it's the 7-odd million people within an hour's drive of us, or how we're doing all the fantastic work about getting people to come and stop with us in Shropshire. I mean, that's seen a huge increase in a real positive sector. But I think there's the other stuff that we hide under a bush a little bit. The second largest producer of green energy in the country. We've got so much around agri-tech, again, building on our natural environment as much as anything else. So you combine that with real innovation, that with a fantastic place for that work-life balance, and you've got a really inviting, an appetizing proposition that we can talk to investors about.
So lots to get your teeth into for the new year, as well as a turkey sandwich and a beer over the Christmas period, then, by the sound of it. Andy, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your support and input this year. And on behalf of all the team at SBLTV, have a great Christmas and we'll see you in the new year.
Great talking to you. All the very best for Christmas.
Thank you,
Cheers
Andy.
now.
Thanks, Andy. Andy Begley there, Chief Executive of Shropshire Council.